Hi Newton, tonight you're watching another episode of Veracity. My name is Tom Sheff, and tonight we have a very special guest. Her name is Paule Verdet. She's a retired sociology teacher who teaches inmates, and our topic for tonight is going to be a little bit about everything. A little bit about parole reform. We're going to be talking a little bit about a program that BU gives, teaching inmates. We're going to be trying to talk about everything. So, hello, Paula.
Hello,
Hi.
Tom.
So, why don't we get started? How long have you live in Newton?
Yes.
You've lived in Newton for 40-odd years.
Yes, I moved, I tried very hard to find a house in Brighton, which seemed to me a better locale for a sociologist, you know, among the people and all that.
Newtonites aren't people?
But it was impossible to find a house for sale. And so we were brought by one of our neighbors to the Chestnut Hill, in the area where the veterans coming back from World War II built their houses. So that house was built in 1946, and we bought it in 1973.
Okay.
Having lived two years in Brighton.
You're a sociology teacher.
Sociology, yes, that's my official definition.
Okay. And you started working for BU. So why don't you talk a little bit about working for BU as a teacher?
I came to BU in 1971 from 12 years in a very interesting interdisciplinary experiment at Wayne State University in Detroit, where we were really working as a team. You know, the psychologist, economist, anthropologist, sociologist, historian, philosopher were all kind of sharing in the lecturing to the students. It was wonderful. You know, you had several weeks to prepare a lecture. You could give a lecture that was something worth working on, and with only one lecture a week. And the rest of the time we were meeting in small groups with students to make sure that they understood the difficult readings that we were assigning to them.
Where was that? That was at?
It was in Detroit.
Wayne State.
Wayne State University.
Okay, so then you hooked up with BU. When and how did that happen?
Well, Silberg was trying to recruit people from interesting programs, and so he recruited 3 from our program in Detroit. There was a psychologist, my friend, another sociologist, and myself.
Okay. And how long did you work there for?
Well, I worked until I was 66, I think. I could have stayed longer, but I thought that I was a little bit exploited by the department because I was taking care of things like planning, you know, who were going to teach which course in which room of the university and all that, and I was seeing a lot of students in my office. So they did not have to give tenure for younger professors there. You know, they could rely on me to so I say, I'm not going to go along with this. There are other things that, by then I had sponsored a great number of families from Laos, the refugees from the Vietnam War, and that was taking me a lot of time.
Okay, so you retired from BU when you were 66.
Yes.
And you're currently 90 years
yes.
old. God bless you.
Yes.
After you retired from BU, how did you hook up
But as I retired, I was still working evenings in our College of Adult Education.
Okay.
You see. And I had thought that my favorite course, which was sociological reflection on work experience, would be interesting for students who were coming, for night courses after working during the day. But they had had enough of work. They wanted to learn other things.
So you were a tough teacher.
So I could not get them to develop, their observation talents and all that. They just didn't like the course.
Okay.
So I was disappointed. And I tried to teach another course, and then I was not particularly interested in the way in which those evening students, were trying to do the minimum work possible and pass the course. That's not my idea of the cooperation. Give me some prisoners, who have nothing better to do than to become first-rate sociologists under my guidance.
I'm sure when they went to jail, all they could think of is how much homework they could get.
Yeah.
So you hooked up with the program. Is there a name to this program?
Yes, Boston University Prison Education Program.
Okay, and they must have a website at BU, or if people wanted to get involved with them that are watching this show, who would they see? Who would they talk to?
It's the younger members of the team who are working on these things, but usually we were recruiting among our colleagues or our students. It's ideal for a retired person, but it is not bad for a current, teacher. So when we find somebody who is flexible, can adjust a course to the students, a person who demands a lot of work from the students, a person who has other things to pass on to students besides the materials that the discipline
life
of that
experience, maybe.
It has to be some virtues, like courage, patience, compassion, fortitude.
Have you ever had problems with an inmate?
Problems with an inmate.
Anyone threaten you during your teaching time there? Now explain to people that you're not actually in a cell teaching.
No, we are in a classroom.
It's a classroom separate from the jail cells, or whatever they call.
Well, you see, Norfolk was built.
It's Norfolk and Bay State.
Yes, Norfolk was built by an idealist who thought that he could create a community, just like any community, that could be in part self-governing, but also instead of having guards, they would have people who could be people of wisdom who could help.
There could be like a president of the inmates or something like that, right?
Almost, the prison is a great place to do philosophy.
Yeah.
You don't find
you
don't find too many people outside the prison dedicated to philosophizing, but in the prison, it's important. You have to try to put two and two together. Why this? Why that? Even, how come that I could do something so awful as I did, and that now, with some help or something, I can really free myself from the evil that I perpetrated?
You've had, talking to you before the show and prior to today, you've had experiences with these inmates that the typical person wouldn't think that's what inmates are about. So why don't you tell people about a couple of your experiences with people? I guess a lot of your inmates go on and write theses. You can actually get a degree from this program.
Yes.
And you're considered a graduate of Boston University.
Right.
Okay. So why don't you talk a little bit about the type of person that goes to this program and what you've seen written. You told me just a couple minutes ago that someone wrote a thesis on a submarine that was used in the Civil War.
Right.
Now, me being the dummy that I am, never knew that there were submarines in the Civil War.
I doubted it very much.
So it was a surprise to me.
Right.
I wonder if they have screen doors in those submarines. But anyway, that was a joke reference to a joke. Anyway, so why don't you tell people a little bit about the type of person that you teach, if you've ever been threatened. You talked about one time that you were kind of threatened, but not really threatened, right?
In words.
It was hard, right? No physical, nothing physical has ever happened.
Never.
And there's no guards in these classrooms. No. Okay.
Well, it varies so much, you see. For instance, one of the students who answered my question about what got him involved in becoming a really fine student. Mm-hmm. And he said that the first course that he registered for when he was admitted to the program was in oceanography.
Oceanography. Okay.
And he had lived in the southern part of the state, and he had used the ocean a great deal. You know, he was an ocean specialist. And he said that when he realized all that could be known about the ocean, it opened the door for him, you know. And he was eager, in the good mind, eager to learn all he could, to read, and for instance, he became so interested then in the functioning of the brain. And there was an inmate whom he had befriended and then who probably was on parole or something and was outside, was caught in a serious automobile accident and went back to probably missed some time when he should be telephoned his parole officer or something like that. He was thrown back into prison. But as a person who was mentally very, very deficient, and my student started observing him and giving him little tests and reading about the functioning of the brain and trying to see if he could discover something and could he not help that friend to develop new connections when something had been disturbed or broken up, and made great progress. Now, when I saw the way he was taking science seriously, I started bringing him every week. Mm-hmm. You know, the Science Times, that is part of the New York Times. Mm-hmm. So I was bringing to him all things, whether I agreed or not, because when it was in social science, there was a lot of things that I didn't agree at all with. But I was trusting him to develop a sense of discernment of things that were really very much interesting and that could be connected with other ideas and all that. I did this and on and on. And then I have another student who is very much interested in the whole topic of evolution. Mm-hmm. And who has his own uh, objections to the science as having discovered that, evolution is it. So he was reading, I emptied some shelves at Princeton University library of books that apparently nobody was reading anymore, but he was going to his Darwin and before Darwin and after Darwin and all that. And one of his notions was that I think that he was a kind of explorer, kind of explorer in matters of theology. But at any rate, he said, "What about the miracles?" He said, "Miracles." You see. How does evolution take into account when Jesus multiplies the loaves and the fish, all of a sudden fishes are appearing like that. See, this is something which evolution could not take into account. So, and C.S. Lewis, whom I trust as a thinker, has written a book on miracles. So I said, I'm going to get that guy to read that. And then he has something on of the natural order and supernatural order. And I did not see exactly how, he was connecting those two orders, almost as if they were implying each other. So I asked my specialist in science, I brought him the book on miracles by C.S. Lewis, and I said, in that chapter 3 or 4, I don't quite remember, I say, I'm losing track a little bit of the strength of the reasoning, that the author is using. And I would like you, with your facility, within that field of scientific reasoning, if you could read that chapter, the book, if you want, and tell me a little how you would criticize or recognize that the C.S. Lewis had a point. He never reported to me on that. But little by little, I came to learn that at night he would read the Bible, and in the morning he was remembering what he had read the day before, and he would kind of orient his day and all that. And so we have been speaking about spirituality, because I must add that for the last 3 years, I told my boss in the program, I said, look, on campus I was doing my best work in my office, during my office hours, discussing with students. In the prison I have my 3 hours between, 8:30 and 11:30 in the morning, and I cannot do any kind of, office hours type of thing. Please don't pay me anymore, but all I want is access to the prison and some time in a small room where I can have office hours.
I'd like to interrupt because we are a little off track.
Right.
Because we're trying to talk about parole reform.
Yes.
We got too much into the program, which is great, by the way. But if you had the opportunity to talk to Deval Patrick about, a lot has been made about parole reform lately because of an incident that happened with Dominic Sinelli 2 or 3 months ago back near Christmas, where he was let out on parole after a couple of years. He he decided to rob. I don't know if everybody knows who it is. I'm sure they do, but a Kohl's department store, and he got trapped, and there was a shootout. Both he and a Woburn police officer died.
Correct.
And he was accomplished with a 19-year-old, and 19-year-old fled. And anyway, so there was a big thing about he was in jail for 25 years because it was he did serious theft, whatever the term is. So anyway, so it's been under scrutiny. Deval Patrick is taking this seriously. Is there anything that you're a Democrat, you voted for Deval Patrick, so this is nothing towards him. If you are critical of him, I'm not quite sure. So what would you like to say to Deval Patrick about parole reform, being that you worked with people, with inmates?
I think that mysterious things happen in prison. We know very little about how the prison is run. When we have contact with the prisoners, we get strange, they can complain something terrible. You will see in the paper that I've given you, written by one of my students. Complain about loneliness, about a kind of experience of being considered less than human, the impression that, at least among the guards, some of them get so annoyed when they see a guy who is really making progress, whether it is in the BU program or in some other program, that as one of them was telling me, the authorities in the Department of Correction act exactly as parents who do not have a continuous care for the children. It's as if parents who are more interested in other things, and so sometimes they completely neglect the children. At other time, they feel bad, and so they do something, what makes the kids feel good. But there is the child has no sense that he can count on the parents to want to want the children to succeed, He said that's the same thing with the Department of Correction. You have these authorities who give you your rules and so forth, let you have something like the BU program, at the drop of a hat, either the superintendent or the Department of Correction head, or the governor could just cancel the program, our program, even though they know that how much the students benefit from it. So it is.
Well, how do you find, have you ever taught someone and they got parole? First of all, have you ever testified for someone as a
parole? Oh, yes.
Yes,
you
testify probably all the time, right?
Well, probably at least a dozen times, possibly a lot more.
Okay. And the prison kind of frowns upon that, right? They just want you to teach, and that's it.
That's right.
Okay.
But since the rule that they presented to me, among many other rules that the prison expected of me, there was a kind of that when I was signing, that I had read and that I would abide by the rules. They were making an exception for special circumstances or something like that. And what I put there is that my professional conscience, my professional ethic involves that if my students are in need of a character, witness type of thing, I owe it to them. Because it is true that I get to know them pretty well in the work they do and in their behavior in my room.
Now, do you teach violent and nonviolent, or just nonviolent criminals?
Oh, no. My violent are the very best.
Your violent are the best?
Oh, yes, no question.
They want to get that degree and get out of there?
No.
No?
You know, the latest thinking that I have been doing, but we sociologists always do thinking, trying to reach veracity.
Well, you're an academic. You're always thinking, right?
But my impression is that when they find themselves having put an end to a person's life, they have done it. What remains for them to do? What it seems to me that they carry with them almost the image of that person who was dead by your doing, and it's as if they had, almost as if it were that to kill the one in them who has done that,
They put
and
a
to
lot of guilt.
And to grow a different, to be a different person.
Now, what happens? There's some criminals, hardened criminals, that don't have a conscience.
Yes,
wouldn't.
that's very true, but they are not in the prison program.
They're not in the program. Well, what happens if they fake being guilty, feeling guilty? Can't you fake that?
Well, there is always the possibility. That's true, but
it doesn't happen very often.
no.
Okay, so let's get back to the Val Patrick. What
Okay.
recommendations would you make to reform the system? We got to wrap up. I'm sorry.
We have to wrap up.
Yeah, it goes just like that. We'll do something later. We'll talk. We'll do a second show on this
We
later.
could, yes. You
But-
see, I think I should have seen to it that you got that
Yeah,
material.
I'm sorry, that's my fault.
But no.
Anyway, thanks for watching Veracity, and thank you very much, Paula, for being on the show. We'll do this again sometime.
Yeah.
And I want you all to search for Veracity. Thank you very much, and thanks for Four Corners Pizza. Bye-bye.
Oh.